Hello and welcome to the Freelancers Tea Break, the short and sweet podcast you can enjoy whilst you're making a cuppa. I'm your host, Emma Cossey, and this is the podcast for anyone who is already freelance or is thinking about going freelance. Welcome back to the Freelancers Tea Break. This week we're going to be talking about universal credits. So when I released my book, one of the parts of my book, by the way, if you're new, is the freelance lifestyle. It is all about freelancing, how to do it, all the steps you need to take, and all the things to do to future-proof it as well. But one of the things I mentioned in there was different financial support that you get as a freelancer. And a few people didn't realise that you can be freelance and claim universal credit. So I thought it might be useful to have an episode that talks about this a bit more. So first of all, universal credit is designed to support people in work, including self-employed people. It's not just for employed people. And you don't need to wait until you're earning a full-time income. You don't need to have everything perfect. You can start small. In fact, they have a 12-month grace period that can really help with that. Before I move forward with this was recorded April 2026. If you're listening to this a little bit later, I would recommend double checking any of it against the government website, which I'll put in the notes, because things change and the way that they do things change. So it's always worth double checking, but I suspect a lot of it will still apply. And another disclaimer is that a lot of this will depend on your work coach. So how they approach things. Like, for example, some work coaches might ask you to also be looking for employed work whilst you're building your self-employed business. Not all, but it's worth bearing in mind that it does depend on who your work coach is and how that works. So, right, let's get into it. So the first thing we need to talk about is the minimum income floor. So this is the rule in universal credit that can treat you as earning a minimum level of income from self-employment, even if you actually earned less that month. And the joys of freelancing is that you're going to have some months you earn more, some months you earn less. So it applies to people assessed as gainfully self-employed. So self-employed is the main job that you're taking. It's organised, regular, and expected to make a profit. And they will probably want to see some evidence that you are gainfully self-employed, whether it's a business plan or anything like that. And it's usually based on what you'd earn if you worked full-time at the national minimum wage or the expected hours agreed with your work coach, minus a notional amount for tax and national insurance. If your actual monthly profit, because they take it based on profit, so your income minus your expenses, is below that level, universal credit may calculate your universal credit using the minimum income floor instead, which can reduce your universal credit payment. So if your actual profit is above that, they may use your actual profit for that month's credits. So many self-employed claimants can get a startup period, often up to 12 months, where the minimum income floor, I don't know why I keep struggling with that, but the minimum income floor doesn't apply, and UC is based on what you actually earn. So regardless of all this, you need to report your income and your allowable business expenses every month. There's a big list of those in the book. And then UC uses your profit, not your turnover. And the minimum income floor can be switched off temporarily in some circumstances. For example, if you're not required to look for work due to health or caring responsibilities, things like that. So during that time, in the 12 months, your UC payments are based on what you actually earn, not what the DWP assumes you earn. So it's basically designed to give you that breathing room to build your client base, because they want you to succeed. They want you to grow a business and be working. That's exactly what the whole thing's designed for. So it's essentially what it is the DWP saying, we're going to assume you earn roughly what someone working full-time at minimum wage would earn. But again, that's after the startup period and not the first 12 months. And not everyone is affected. Some people are exempt. So again, that's all down to the work coach. The key thing is you're not thrown in the deep end on day one, and your work coach should be able to give you some idea of that. So if you're going to be doing this, you'll need to report your earnings every month through your Universal Credit Journal. So essentially what you report is what you earned, what you spent on business expenses. That's it. So the money that you had coming into the business, and not what you invoice, because obviously invoicing is great, but it might take a month for that to come in. So it needs to be the actual money that's come in, and then deduct any of your business expenses as well. You don't need an accountant, by the way, to do this. You don't, as a sole trader, need an accountant anyway. I always have, because I hate doing my accounts, and she is amazing. But you don't have to have it. But I would recommend, because we've got Make Tax Digital coming in, looking at some kind of system like Free Agent or one of the other tools that is part of that system, because you'll need to switch to it eventually. And then just a word on the expenses as well. As I mentioned, there's a long list in the book, but it can be things like equipment, software, travel, a portion of your phone or internet, marketing costs like business cards and things like that, and costs from working from home as well. So I think the hardest thing is people worrying that they're going to get something wrong. And I think that'll be really interesting to dive into a bit more at another point. But a lot of people are worried that they're going to do something legally wrong and then have a big bill or anything like that. As long as you're tracking everything and you're in touch with your work coach and you're checking in about everything, you should be absolutely fine. And if anything goes wrong or anything gets kind of messed up or anything, your work coach is there to support you, and they should be there to guide you as well on that. They may not be great necessarily at coaching you on being a freelancer. That's what I'm there for. But they are there for the financial and legal side of things. So Universal Credit isn't there to punish you. It's there to support you while you grow, and it's in their best interest to support you in that. So if you've been thinking about going freelance, but you're on a Universal Credit, or you think you're going to have to be, and you're not sure if you can do both of them, you absolutely can. It's not something they necessarily talk about a lot, but you can. You're allowed to start, and you're allowed to learn, and you're allowed to build something that works for you. Now, if you want a little bit more support on this, do come and join us in the Facebook group or the Discord group, the Freelance Lifestylers. Both of them are free, and you can come join us and ask any questions. I know a couple of people in my group have had that in the past, that situation, and then they've managed to come off Universal Credit because their business grew. So there are others that can be able to advise on this sort of thing as well. So I hope that was useful. But I would definitely recommend having a look on Gov.uk's website about it. I will pop that in the show notes. And again, just a reminder, if you're listening to this later than April 26th, you might want to have a look just to see if there's been any updates. But yeah, generally, that is how it works. So I hope you have a wonderful freelance week.